What's up, everybody? I'm Leaf with Adaptable Wealth, and in today's video I'm going to show you how you've been taught to think about debt is all wrong. Then we'll go through exactly how you can differentiate between good debt and bad debt, and finally I'll give you 3 things you need to do to ensure that you're using debt wisely. Ready? Let's kick it off. Debt is an agreement between a borrower and a lender where the lender provides access to spending power now in return for the repayment of that value over time, plus an additional amount of value called interest. All our lives we are told that debt is bad and that we should avoid it like the plague. And yes, there are many cases where the use of debt is not a wise financial decision. For example, someone who buys their first house where the payment is 50% of their take-home pay, or someone who puts a trip to Europe on their credit card when they don't already have the money saved to pay for the trip because, you only live once. But there are many cases where the use of debt is a wise financial decision. Take someone who increases their income by 20 grand a year by taking on $25,000 in student loan debt, or someone who runs their monthly expenses through their credit card to reduce their expenses by 1 to 5% simply because they know they have the money to pay it off immediately and will do so. But wait a minute, I thought mortgages are good debt and credit cards are bad debt. That's where the personal finance pundits get it wrong. Debt is not inherently good or bad. There's no such thing as good or bad types of debt. There are only cases where the use of debt increases or decreases the likelihood of being a good or bad financial decision. Notice the 2 words I just used there, cases and potential or likelihood, not types. When making financial decisions, there are no guarantees. There are only probabilities, and the details matter a lot. This is why you can't sort the various types of debt into good or bad, because the answer to the question, is this good debt, is always, it depends. And this is the mistake I see most personal finance pundits making. These so-called experts say that good debt is anything that it can increase your net worth or increase your earnings power. Things like a mortgage, a student loan, or a business loan are commonly referred to as good debt, while credit cards, auto loans, and personal loans are referred to as bad debt. The problem with that type of thinking is that I can come up with scenarios where the use of credit cards and car loans are a fantastic use of debt, while I can think of many scenarios where a mortgage or a student loan is a horrible use of debt. I hope you're enjoying this content. If you are, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. It is the easiest and a free way for you to support this channel if you're finding this content valuable. Now let's get back to the content. Now that we've established that there really isn't such thing as good or bad types of debt, let's walk through the qualities of debt that will help make it more likely to be a good financial decision. The first is that it has a low interest rate. This helps ensure that the return on investment is sufficiently high so that the debt is worth the risk. I say anything less than 5% qualifies as sufficiently low in most cases, but it will depend on the rate of return you're getting from the use of the debt. If you're only getting a 3% return on investment and you're paying 5% interest, then it's a losing proposition and you shouldn't use debt for that investment. The second quality that good debt has is a fixed interest rate. This is a must for me. I never use variable rate debt for 2 reasons. First, a fixed rate eliminates interest rate risk. Why wouldn't you want to eliminate such an important risk? The drawback is that it usually comes with a higher rate than adjustable interest rate debt, but if you have to use an adjustable rate loan to make the numbers work, then you shouldn't be taking out the loan in the first place. The second reason a fixed rate is a must for me is that it turns inflation from a silent thief of your money to a thief of the lender's money. With a fixed rate, your payment doesn't change over the term of the loan, so as the value of your money falls over time, you pay your debts back with less valuable dollars. As inflation erodes away your purchasing power, your income should be increasing at least as fast as the rate of inflation, and hopefully more. If you can pull this off, the percentage of your income that the debt consumes slowly drops over time, and debt becomes easier and easier to pay. This isn't the case for variable rate debt. Interest rates always have an inflation premium embedded into the rate, so as inflation increases or decreases, so does the interest rate, and so will your payment. Variable rate debt pushes the interest rate and inflation risks from the lender back to you as the borrower. The third quality of good debt is that it's being used to support the financing of a cash flowing asset. Ideally, the cash flow will be enough to cover the cost of paying the debt and then some, and the growth in the cash flow should outpace inflation. This doesn't necessarily need to be a financial asset like a rental property. Your skills are a cash flowing asset as well if you employ them effectively. Next, the loan should not be callable. If the loan is callable, the lender can just show up one day and force you to pay back the loan. This is why buying stocks on margin is so risky. If the counterparty runs into liquidity problems, your ass will be getting called for some cash or you'll be forced to sell. And if the trade hasn't worked out for you so well, whoops, you'll lose. And lastly, the debt servicing cost should be affordable out of your other income sources. Not only does this apply to car or student loans, you should have enough cash reserves to pay the mortgage on a rental property for 2 to 3 months, just in case you experience a vacancy. And the Lord knows you shouldn't use a credit card unless you have the cash in your account right now and you're going to pay that sucker off as soon as you get home. Let me take a second to address credit cards. So many people trash on them as being the worst form of debt, and for the most part, they've earned that crown. If you can't control your spending or afford to make a purchase with cash or a debit card, then you should avoid credit cards like the plague. Carrying a credit card balance is such a wealth killer that paying down credit cards is twice as good a return on investment as investing in the stock market as measured by the long-term average return of the S&P 500. But if you're the person that manages your money wisely and always has the cash to pay for your purchases or you don't make the purchase, then you'd be a fool not to run it through a credit card to get the 1 to 2% and in some cases 5, 10, or even 15% cash back. You have to understand that debit and credit cards are so prevalent these days that the transaction fees are already fully embedded in the price of all goods and services that we buy. So even if you hate credit cards and refuse to use them, you're paying the 3 to 4% transaction fee as part of everything you buy. There is no avoiding it. In my opinion, if you're going to make the purchase anyway and you have the money right now, you're basically giving up free money if you don't run it through a credit card. On the other hand, bad debts generally have the opposite qualities for the same reasons. Bad debt generally has high interest rates, is used to finance depreciating, perishable, or consumable goods. It has a variable rate and or is a callable loan. It finances something that doesn't pay for itself, and you can't cover the payments if required to do so out of your other income sources. Well, those are the ins and outs of how to think about debt. It's about likelihood and probabilities given the information that you have to make a decision at this point in time. It's not about certain types of debt like mortgages and student loans being good debt and credit cards being a bad type of debt. Any debt can be good given the right scenario, and any debt can end up being bad debt in the wrong scenario. I hope you found this video helpful. It's the first of a 2-part series where we explore the wise use of debt. If you want to learn about the 3 steps you need to take to ensure the wise use of debt, please check out the video up here. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section below. Until next time, you all take care. And remember, wealth is not only about money and things. Your time and health are just as important, and working to improve all 3 pillars of life is the key to being adaptable, resilient, and thriving in life.